Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into something absolutely fascinating, decoding the layered prophecies of Isaiah chapter 60. And we're not just looking at them as abstract ancient poetry, we're going to map them directly to hard historical timelines. According to our source material, these verses give us precise chronological descriptions of real-world restorations. We're talking about a timeline that stretches from ancient temples to modern immigration fleets, all culminating in the ultimate establishment of the New Jerusalem. So get comfortable, because we're about to look at history and prophecy in a highly structured way. Let's get right into it. Okay, let's dive into this chronological roadmap. We'll be hitting 6 main stops today. 1. Light out of darkness. 2. Ancient trade and temples. 3. The modern gathering. 4. The New Jerusalem. 5. Rebuilding the final sanctuary. And finally, 6. The millennial peace.
Starting off with section 1, Light out of darkness. Isaiah chapter 60 verse 1 states, "Arise, shine, for thy light is come, and the glory of the Lord is risen upon thee." Now, our sources explain that this isn't just a nice thought, it's a definitive call to action. It represents divine enlightenment and the literal physical restoration of Israel through ancient leaders. Think about figures like Zerubbabel around 520 BC or Nehemiah a bit later. They actually stepped up to lead their people out of exile, literally reflecting that divine radiance mentioned right here in the verse.
Now, what's really interesting about this history is the cyclical nature it reveals. It's like a giant pendulum. You can clearly track these periods of gross darkness, the punishments and exiles in 722 BC, 596 BC, and 70 AD. But paired right alongside them are the mercies. These are the periods of restoration where light breaks through, like the decree to rebuild the temple in 538 BC, stretching all the way into modern times around 1947. History, according to these prophecies, operates on this constant rhythm of scattering and gathering.
Moving right along to section 2, Ancient Trade and Temples. Isaiah chapter 60, verse 6 states, "The multitude of camels shall cover thee, the dromedaries of Midian and Ephah, all they from Sheba shall come. They shall bring gold and incense, and they shall shew forth the praises of the Lord." It's easy to read that as just a metaphor, right? But our sources detail how foreign trade actually brought immense, tangible wealth into the holy city. We're talking about a massive economic influx playing out in real life.
To really understand how literal this was, just consider the commerce around the temple in 34 AD. The temple wasn't just this quiet, isolated place of worship. It was a massive economic hub. You had money changers actively converting Roman currency into Tyrian shekels just to pay the temple tax. You had animal sellers providing doves, lambs, and oxen for sacrifices. And there were merchants and artisans selling imported silks, glass, and incense. Actually, the historian Flavius Josephus explicitly recorded that the outer courts were completely filled with merchants. It perfectly fulfilled this vision of wealth gathering in Jerusalem right up until its destruction in 70 AD.
So, that brings us to section 3, the modern gathering.
Let's jump forward to modern history. Isaiah chapter 60, verse 9 states, "Surely the isles shall wait for me, and the ships of Tarshish first, to bring thy sons from far, their silver and their gold with them, unto the name of the Lord thy God, and to the Holy One of Israel, because he hath glorified thee." Our source notes explain how this verse perfectly describes a literal modern gathering. We are talking about exiles returning to their homeland by sea.
And this brilliantly illustrates how the ships of Tarshish prophecy maps directly onto the historic immigration fleets from 1947 and 1948. Just look at the scale of it. You have the Exodus in 1947 carrying over 4,500 Holocaust survivors. Then you've got the Pan York and Pan Crescent bringing a staggering 15,000 refugees in just a single transport. These massive naval efforts literally brought thousands of people from far-off lands right on the eve of the nation's independence. It's history playing out like a script.
The text then introduces a really fascinating dynamic. Isaiah chapter 60, verse 10 states, "And the sons of strangers shall build up thy walls, and their kings shall minister unto thee. For in my wrath I smote thee, but in my favor have I had mercy on thee." Basically, Gentiles, or the sons of strangers, would actively aid in the physical rebuilding and the literal unearthing of ancient Jerusalem.
A prime historical example of this, the British Royal Engineer Charles Warren. Back in 1867, sent by the Palestine Exploration Fund, he acted precisely as a son of a stranger. He went in and meticulously excavated and mapped the ancient water systems, including the famous Worn Shaft, and surveyed the ancient walls around the Temple Mount. His work practically laid the foundation for biblical archaeology, physically uncovering the city's ancient borders. Pretty incredible, right?
Which leads us into Section 4, the New Jerusalem.
Now, describing this ultimate destination, Isaiah chapter 60, verse 11 states, "Therefore thy gates shall be open continually. They shall not be shut day nor night, that men may bring unto thee the forces of the Gentiles, and that their kings may be brought." Think about ancient times for a second. City gates were heavily fortified and completely locked down at night just for survival. So our sources explain that having continually open gates symbolizes absolute impenetrable security. It's the ultimate welcoming of all nations into this future holy city.
To really validate this prophetic endpoint, our source document brings together compounding scriptural witnesses, because it's not just Isaiah talking about this. Revelation chapter 21 describes the holy city coming down from God. Texts like 3 Nephi discuss the gathering of the remnant to build this exact city. And Moses chapter 7 talks about an overarching holy city serving as a tabernacle. You have these entirely different traditions, these diverse texts, and they are all pointing like an arrow to the exact same profound focal point, a New Jerusalem where God dwells.
Let's move on to Section 5, Rebuilding the Final Sanctuary.
When it comes to rebuilding, Isaiah chapter 60, verse 17 states, "For brass I will bring gold, and for iron I will bring silver, and for wood brass, and for stones iron. I will also make thy officers peace, and thine exactors righteousness." This is all about a massive transformation. It highlights God's promise to take inferior, everyday materials and replace them with items of far greater, enduring value. An ultimate divine upgrade, if you will.
Let's move to and see how this builds historically, because we can see exactly why this matters. During King Solomon's reign, the temple housed these magnificent, pure gold shields. But after an Egyptian invasion during his son Rehoboam's reign, those gold shields were stolen. And what were they replaced with? Lesser, brass shields. It was a very literal, tangible symbol of national decline. So the crucial takeaway here is that when Isaiah prophesies for brass I will bring gold, it's a promise to reverse that historical decline. It's a guarantee to restore the sanctuary to a level of glory even greater than before.
And finally, Section 6, the Millennial Peace. Entering this promised era, Isaiah chapter 60 verse 18 states, "Violence shall no more be heard in thy land, wasting nor destruction within thy borders, but thou shalt call thy walls salvation and thy gates praise." Our source notes explicitly emphasize that this specific promise, this absolute, total peace, has not yet been historically fulfilled. It still stands as the ultimate future benchmark for the gathered people.
And as for the environment itself, Isaiah chapter 60, verse 20 states, "Thy sun shall no more go down, neither shall thy moon withdraw itself, for the Lord shall be thine everlasting light, and the days of thy mourning shall be ended." The text explains here that the very glory of God will actually replace the natural sun. Think about that for a second. All those cycles of spiritual darkness, all those back and forth pendulum swings of history we looked at earlier, they are completely, permanently removed.
To truly grasp how powerful this is, you have to contrast it with other scriptural warnings. Throughout the texts, like in Isaiah 13, Matthew 24, Revelation 6, you see these terrifying prophecies of tribulation where the sun is darkened and the moon turns to blood. Those represent collapsing governments and earthly failures. But Isaiah 60's millennial promise, it's the exact opposite. The sun will never go down again. It signals a stable, everlasting kingdom that simply will not fail.
Finally, Isaiah chapter 60 verse 22 states, "A little one shall become 1,000, and a small one a strong nation. I, the Lord, will hasten it in his time." Our sources describe this as a hyperbole predicting a massive, massive demographic explosion for God's gathered people. It's about transforming these humble, small beginnings into an incredibly strong, populous nation exactly at the appointed time. Which brings us to a final, pretty profound question. We've traced the timeline from ancient Babylonian exiles all the way to 1948 refugee ships, perfectly mirroring the text. So if these ancient prophecies so accurately mapped our history of restorations up to this very moment, what will hastening it in his time look like tomorrow? The timeline isn't just static history, guys. It is actively unfolding right now. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep analyzing, keep learning, and I'll see you next time.